Domestic violence cases in Arizona are taken very seriously, often carrying harsher penalties than when the same crime is committed against an unrelated third party. Making matters harder, guilt is often automatically presumed in domestic violence cases, even though the American legal system should assume innocence until proven guilty. The result is often unfair cases, biased juries, and unnecessarily severe sentences. The good news is that with an experienced attorney in your corner, you can fight baseless charges, present an effective defense in court, and negotiate with the prosecutor and judge for lesser sentencing. In some cases, that may mean having the domestic violence charges dropped entirely. In other cases, it could mean successfully defending against the charges in court or reaching a plea agreement with the prosecutor. Domestic violence in Arizona takes many forms, from sexual, physical, emotional, and financial abuse. A key determining factor for domestic violence is the relationship between the defendant and victim. According to Arizona law, domestic violence charges could arise in any of the following relationships: current or former spouses, individuals living together or have resided together previously, those sharing children. One individual becomes pregnant through sexual contact with another individual, with either of the parties being involved being the victim's parent, grandparent, child, grandchild, sibling, parent-in-law, grandparent-in-law, step-parents, grandparents, stepchildren, step-grandchildren, as well as brother or sister-in-law. Step-parenting is sometimes known. The victim in this case was a child living in the same household with both defendant and victim. Additionally, both parties engaged in or have previously engaged in an intimate or sexual relationship between themselves. In Arizona, the following crimes may be considered domestic violence: animal cruelty, assault or aggravated assault, criminal damage or trespassing, custodial interference, dangerous crimes against children or child abuse, disorderly conduct, emotional abuse, endangerment or kidnapping, harassment or aggravated harassment, manslaughter, murder or negligent homicide, stalking or sexual assault, surreptitiously photographing, videotaping, filming, digitally recording or viewing, threatening or intimidating a witness, unlawful imprisonment. Domestic violence offenses typically carry similar legal ramifications as non-domestic violence offenses. For instance, if a particular crime usually carries a sentence range between 6 and 12 months in prison, similar charges committed in domestic violence context will often incur the same sentence range in jail time. But it should be remembered that domestic violence cases typically receive harsher sentences due to their nature and impact on victims, with judges and juries often being less inclined to grant any leeway due to judge-run trials and victim testimony. Domestic violence charges typically follow the same sentencing guidelines as the original offense. However, in certain circumstances, domestic violence charges can have different legal repercussions, and it may even be possible, though difficult, for a charge to be dropped under certain conditions. When facing domestic violence charges, it is essential that you seek legal advice and guidance from an experienced attorney for accurate advice and guidance tailored specifically to your unique situation. They are equipped to offer tailored assistance, tailored just for you. Domestic violence cases that end in jail time or probation typically require defendants to complete an offender treatment program for domestic violence offenders, also referred to as DV classes. Under Arizona law, when pregnant victims of felonies face enhanced penalties under criminal law due to defendants' knowledge, their maximum prison sentences may increase by 2 years. A standard Class 6 felony typically carries up to 3 years imprisonment. In cases involving domestic violence where defendant knew victim was pregnant, however, their prison time could potentially increase up to 5 years of incarceration. An individual convicted 3 times within 7 years for misdemeanor domestic violence may be charged with the Class 5 felony aggravated domestic violence, carrying with it potential prison sentences of up to 2.5 years per offense for their first conviction. There are a number of ways you can defend against domestic charges. After consulting your case with a lawyer, the attorney may recommend any of the following strategies. Asserting self-defense. establishing reasonable doubt for or disproving the underlying crime. Contesting that the relationship qualifies for domestic violence classification. The first example is probably the most common defense. If you can establish that the alleged victim initiated the altercation, they would be guilty of domestic violence while you were actually defending yourself. Or, at the very least, you can establish that both parties were equally guilty, which may lead to the prosecutor dropping the charges against you. When it's impossible to have the charges against you dropped or the case dismissed, your attorney may discuss the possibility of reaching a plea deal with the prosecutor. This is often the preferred solution when you are guilty and the prosecutor has solid evidence against you. In a plea deal, the prosecutor may agree to lower the charges against you in exchange for a guilty pleading. For example, instead of facing a Class 6 felony, the prosecutor could drop the charges to a Class 1 misdemeanor, resulting in a lighter sentencing. Police responding to domestic violence calls may take at least one person into custody if there are reasonable grounds to believe the situation warrants such action. Their goal should be objective assessment without assigning blame or prioritizing who started an argument or made the call. Domestic violence charges in Arizona may be filed in any of the following circumstances. It appears the victim and defendant may be married or resided together at some point. Both parties share children together. Either party could become pregnant due to exposure or being hit by one party's violence against the other. Furthermore, either party could be related through blood or court order to either party involved in this matter. If the relationship has come to an end, courts will consider factors such as its nature and duration, frequency of interaction, and how long ago its termination occurred. Domestic violence includes crimes such as sexual violence, assault, battery, disorderly conduct, murder, kidnapping, false imprisonment, stalking violations of restraining orders, obstructing telephone use, intimidation, harassment, and child abuse, among others. Have you been charged with domestic violence? Whether you're facing misdemeanor or felony charges, it's important to consult with a defense attorney as soon as possible. An experienced Arizona defense attorney can negotiate for your release from jail on a fair bond, protect your legal rights, and present a strong defense for the charges against you. Police investigators often take a hardline approach to domestic violence cases, so it's critical you have an attorney present during any interview or interrogation. You should not accept a plea deal from the prosecutor or strike a deal with the police interrogator without first speaking to an attorney, even if they tell you the deal is off the table if you call an attorney. The difference between a successful outcome and one that is not often comes down to the attorney. With the right attorney and legal team, you have a much better chance of minimizing your penalties and the impact of your charge. At JacksonWhite, we routinely secure reduced charges and dismissed case for our clients. We strive to obtain the best results, and our familiarity with the court system allows us to have a high success rate in all areas of criminal defense. To see how we can help you, we invite you to call our office for your free case review. One of our attorneys will review your information and help you make a decision on moving forward with your case. There's no obligation, and we look forward to offering our assistance. Call 480-745-1639 for your domestic violence consultation today.